A very happy Independence Day to all of you. We, the people of India, 140 crore citizens of India, are marching ahead with a leap of faith, with a dream in our eyes that India would be a developed country by 2047. We are passing through Amrit Kal, the era of elixir. And our dream is not an exaggeration. It is based on reality. And the reality is a country which was stricken with hunger and poverty is today the 5th largest economy in the world. And very confidently, we are speaking up our minds on various global platforms. Today, we are going to discuss the beautiful journey of 70 years of India's diplomacy and further where it is moving ahead. For better understanding, I have tried to divide this whole journey into phases. Before we start, one thing should be very clear to all of us that diplomacy, what is diplomacy? Diplomacy is it's the art and science of managing a country's national interest. And second thing which is very important to be understood is that diplomacy never exists in vacuum because it's a function of time and space. So let us see our journey, let us see the scenario that existed at the time of our independence. So immediately after Second World War, when Second World War ended in 1945, we have seen many big and small colonies, they have started attaining independence. Some have taken the path of democracy, some have become dictatorial or military regimes. India was one of the largest colonies. We had almost 200 years of colonial rule, and our independence came with partition. It came with genocide. And we have also faced first attack from Pakistan in October 1947. And parallelly, if we look at the then global order, March 1947, beginning of Cold War, the world was getting divided into two blocks. Capitalism versus communist bloc, one led by USA, one led by USSR. And seeing these situations, if you see our foreign policy, initially our foreign policy was mainly concentrated on safeguarding our territorial integrity, security, promoting our economic development. And we did not join any of the blocs. We wanted to relish the newly achieved independence. We wanted to have our own decision-making power. We were against the colonial legacies. So that is why we have adopted to remain non-aligned to any of these military blocs. At the time of independence, we did not have a strong army, neither a robust economy. But we had our strengths, and our strength was our civilizational and cultural values. These are very much reflected in our foreign policy that time and even today. Values like non-violence, values like tolerance, values like pluralism, values like respect for diversity, values like peaceful coexistence, etc. And all these are molded in our foreign policy principles like principle of Panchsheel, principle of non-alignment, principle of asymmetrical support, principle of peaceful settlement of international disputes, so on and so forth. So initially our diplomacy, if you see, it is highly loaded with lot of value system that we had that time in our diplomacy, which are even followed today. Today also our diplomacy is full of our value systems that we have adopted at the time of independence. So if you look at our foreign policy immediately after independence, so after independence, our foreign policy was mainly about securing our territorial integrity. We focused on our neighborhood relationship, and that is what we can see that immediately after independence, our first, one of the first treaties in the neighborhood was 1949 Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation with Bhutan, followed by 1950 Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation with Nepal, and then in 1954 we signed Panchsheel with China. So in a nutshell, if you see, we focused on our neighborhood, we focused on our territorial integrity, and on the global platform, we followed NAM, non-aligned movement. So our foreign policy can be said to be more idealistic. In the initial first 2 years of, or first 2 decades, you can say 40s and 50s in our foreign policy. But as we have moved into 60s, 60s has brought more pragmatism into our foreign policy, and the reason being, we faced wars. 1962, we faced war with China, where China has been able to capture a sizable portion of India in the eastern and the western sectors. The 1965 war with Pakistan, which has finally led to the status quo after signing off the agreement in 1966, the Tashkent Agreement. So our foreign policy brought more pragmatism. We started focusing more on our security. And by this time, the global order was very strongly getting divided into blocks. And 1961, India became one of the founding members of NAM. And from 1960s, when we move on to 1970s, so initial period of 1970, like in 1971-72, we have asserted ourselves as a regional power. We helped in the formation or liberation of Bangladesh in 1971. In 1972, we signed Shimla Agreement with Pakistan, in which CFL line, ceasefire line, which was drawn in 1949, was finally converted into LOC, line of control. And we have also decided that all our bilateral issues would be discussed mutually rather than any third-party intervention. So, 1970s initial phases, if you see, we have been more assertive as a regional power. But later on, the dynamics, the permutation combinations inside and outside started changing in the later half of the 1970s. In the later half of the 1970s till you see 1990s, Cold War was at its peak, that too in our neighborhood. The focus of the Cold War shifted to Afghanistan. And Afghanistan, because of this Cold War, we have also seen the growing nexus between Pakistan, China and US, which was threatening our security. Then also from 70s to 90s, what we have seen is that breakdown of USSR, our time-tested friend, the end of Cold War. And internally, we faced balance of payment crisis. So all these factors, if you see, they have been reflected, they have been echoed in our foreign policy from 1991 onwards. To deal with the balance of payment crisis, we have started LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization. And for that, we started economically engaging with different countries in our neighborhood. And also we have started Gujarat Doctrine to further improve our relationship in the neighborhood. We started Look East policy, especially focusing the ASEAN countries. So to deal with the internal problem of BOP crisis, we have started this. And after the end of Cold War, we also see the beginning of globalization, which has further pushed India to have good relationship with different countries. And on security front, as the nexus between China, Pakistan and USA was getting stronger, we have also done Pokhran 2, the nuclear test. Of course, after that, we have faced a lot of problems. USA has put a lot of sanctions on India. And also in 1999, if you see, so in 1999 also we have been successful in fending off Pakistan against its military adventurism, that is your Kargil war. So this has been the scenario till 1990s. And then if we move on towards 2000, so 2000 के बाद की जो हमारी foreign policy है, there you will see that we were more oriented towards a balancing act. And the reason being, globalization was also getting stronger. We were also economically growing. We were growing as a big market. And our focus was mainly, in our diplomacy, our focus was mainly shifted or it has got shifted on economic cooperation with different countries. And during this period, in the balancing act time, you will see that we have maintained, rather you can say we have got closer to many great powers during this period, like USA. 2005, we have signed the landmark civil nuclear deal with USA. 2008, with the help of USA, India has also got NSG, Nuclear Supplier Group's waiver. Despite the fact that we are not the signatory of Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, Parallelly, we also strengthened our relationship with Russia. And in the meantime, we have also come closer to China. China became one of the major economic partners. And along with China, we have got into a group called BRICS, which includes your Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. We got into BRICS basically to check the hegemony of the West, especially USA. If you see, we have been trying to maintain a balancing act. And then in 2005, we started Look West policy. Our focus was also towards the West Asian countries. And this time we are looking at the West Asia beyond the prism of energy and remittances. We started looking towards West Asia even from the perspectives like investments, even from the perspectives like security, strategic cooperation, so on. So if you see this period from 2000 onwards, we have been moving towards a more balancing act in our diplomacy. And if you talk about our present period of our diplomacy, which we can divide from 2014 onwards. So 2014 onwards to the present times, our foreign policy has become very proactive. We have become very energetic in our diplomacy. And as I have already discussed, that foreign policy is a factor of time and space. So there are so many internal and external factors which has made our foreign policy so energetic. Today, we have become a major market to the world. Today, we are 1/5 of the global population. Today, we are the 5th largest economy in the world. So we have achieved great heights. And at the same time, there are many internal and external factors which are giving this kind of your energy to the diplomacy. Internal factors like now we are focusing on making India Atmanirbhar. So we are focusing on our manufacturing sector. We are focusing on Make in India, Make for the World, Atmanirbhar Bharat. We are focusing on our economic growth, development, and all these aspects. And for that, we are engaging with different countries in the world. We are looking for newer markets. We are looking for newer collaborations. We are also now focusing on Indianization of defense production. So that is why you will see that recently we have done our defense agreements with USA and with France, where we are now focusing on technology transfer also. It's no more buyer-seller relationship. So we are now focusing on making India Atmanirbhar. So we are looking for investments. We are looking for new technologies. So in this direction, you will see the foreign policy is interacting with different countries around the world. And if you talk about external factors, so there is a big tectonic movement going on in the area of diplomacy across the world right now. There are so many permutation combinations that we see in the present times. One is US versus China rivalry. China has now become an existential threat to USA. And US along with West sees India as a very important partner for deterring China. And on the other side, the rise of China, especially in the Indo-Pacific region or more precisely in the Indian Ocean region, it is challenging the freedom of navigation. It is challenging the rule-based order. Then parallelly, if you see the older players like Russia, like Egypt, like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, they are now also trying to increase their influence in the global politics. And in the last few years, like 3-4 years, if you see, the world has been facing the challenges of pandemic. Now world is trying to cope up with this challenge. Even today, we are trying to cope up with this challenge, and that is why we are talking about resilient alternative supply chains. Then along with this, in the present times, we are also witnessing Russia-Ukraine crisis, which has brought a lot of turmoil in the present global order. So if you see all these factors, internal and external factors combined together, it has shaped our diplomacy in the present times. In the present times, our foreign policy is more about de-hyphenation. We are focusing too much on our strategic autonomy. From non-alignment to multi-alignment to now we are going for self-alignment. We are too strongly talking about our strategic autonomy. Then India is also actively, very actively, you will see that India is shaping the global discourse on various important discussion tables. We are actively talking about issues like maritime connectivity, issues like security, issues like terrorism, resilient supply chains, data and cyber security. And not only this, our diplomacy has been very vocal about climate change. Our climate diplomacy has also come forward with a lot of new initiatives. Earlier, we were rule followers. Today, we are agenda setters. We are rule makers. India has taken up initiatives like International Solar Alliance. India has taken up initiative like IRIS. And also at UNFCCC. On various environmental platforms, India has been advocating the voice of the global south. India has been talking about the rights of the global south, and hence we are talking about climate justice, we are talking about climate finance, we are talking about CBDR, common but differentiated responsibility. So, and not only in the area of climate change, even in the area of terrorism also, what we see is that India is talking about CCIT. India has become again a very, very prominent voice for talking about CCIT. India is talking about UN reforms. India is talking about changes in the multilateral institutions which were formed 75 years back, and now they are not applicable, or they are not apt according to the changed circumstances. So hence we are demanding for reforms in the existing multilateral global orders, multilateral institutions. Then at the same time, we are also focusing, our diplomacy is now too much caring for our diaspora, our people of Indian origin who are our citizens, or the people who have taken up the citizenship of other countries. So we are now too much focusing through our diplomacy. We are talking about the rights of our citizens, and that is what we have seen, that we have been very swift in taking up the diaspora issues through diplomacy. And in the recent times, we have seen that India has done many evacuation projects, like we have brought our students back from Ukraine, Operation Ganga. We have done Operation Sankat Mochan. We have done Operation Rahat in Yemen, so on and so forth. And not only these evacuation operations, but also we are also diplomatically negotiating the rights of or addressing the challenges of our people who want to migrate to other countries. So we are addressing the challenges of migration and mobility of our people to different parts of the world. Not only this, we are also now very vocal about the interest of our students who are going for higher education to different countries. So in this way, if you see that Indian foreign policy is not only concentrated in the area of like climate change, or in the area of terrorism, or the traditional areas that we always talk about in our diplomacy, that is territorial integrity and all. We have diversified in various dimensions in our foreign policy. And these years, the present time is also very, very challenging time. And this year, especially in this challenging times, this year is very important for India. 2023, India is the host of G20. India is the host of SCO. And what we are seeing is that all rival powers, be it your China, be it your USA, be it your Russia, be it your European Union, be it your Ukraine, be it your Egypt, be it your Turkey, be it your Saudi Arabia, all of them are coming to India. And all of them are coming with one common thing, that is trust. And that shows the strength of our diplomacy. That shows the value, the strong belief of our diplomacy that talks about the concept of Vasudev Kutumbakam. Thus, in a nutshell, if you see, over the last 75 years, our diplomacy has shown lot of depth, lot of maturity, and lot of adaptability. Now the question is, what lies ahead. Still 25 years to go. So what we should do, or what we are doing for the next 25 years to achieve our dream. What are our initiatives during this, or what should be our initiative during this Amrit Kal to achieve our dream of a developed country status by 2047? What is required is we need to strengthen ourselves economically. Today, we are the 5th largest economy. We are a big market. We are one of the largest markets. But on the other side, we also have to become one of the largest exporters of high-tech products in the world. Then we also need to focus on our neighborhood more. Why? Because the coming era is definitely going to be the Asian century. As Goldman Sachs, it has predicted that by 2075, the top 4 economies would be China, India, USA, and Indonesia. So if you see out of these 4, 3 economies are from Asia. Definitely, it's a good news for Asia. It will bring more prosperity to Asia, but at the same time, there will be more competition in Asia. So these rivaling powers, these competing powers would be playing a tug of war. They would try to bring as many countries of the region into their fold. So that's why we need to focus more on our neighborhood. And that is what we are also doing. That is what we have seen, that we have provided, and we have been one of the first responders to Sri Lanka in the recent economic crisis. We are one of the first responders to many of the countries in our neighborhood in the present times. Then militarily also, we need to have a lot of strength. We need to modernize our military. Because military modernization is something which is where we are still lacking. And apart from that, we also need to diplomatically work towards a global order which is more democratic. We should work toward more democratization of international relationships. Then we should also acquire the capabilities to be the developmental partner in the world. We should also be a security provider, be it your traditional or non-traditional security threats. We should be the first responders in the world. And then we should be also able to offer a model of good governance based on our strong value system to the world. After all, we cannot forget that we are a civilization which is 50 decades old. So we have a very strong value system. Jai Hind, and wishing you all a very happy Independence Day.